I remember talking now at least 40 years ago, and it was just when I began giving a weekly class. I did not know where it would ultimately evolve. And today, so much of what I do today really, you can say, was spawned or birthed at that time back in 1981, 82. It's going to be 40 years. And it was the first time I really began to teach. And it was to a few people coming from the arts and entertainment industry. Started an informal conversation, which then grew, more people coming. And it was fascinating because we had nothing in common except our spiritual pursuits. The people I was speaking with came from a very non-traditional background, as opposed to myself coming from a traditional Jewish background. And I remember it was this week, actually, when we read in the Bible, in the Torah, about the story of Exodus, of Egypt. And I shared something about fear. Fear. And that is the title that I'm going to be discussing. Are you afraid? The antidote to fear. And when I discussed it, I remember an individual came over to me. He was in his 50s. It was a businessman, a promoter, among other things. And he said to me, you touched upon something tonight that I've never heard before, but it put the finger right on the pulse. The power that fear exerts over us is so intense, but its greatest power is not because it's so obvious, it's because it's so invisible. We don't see fear. We can't define it. We can't say the enemy looks like this, has so many weapons, carries so much firepower, is that strong. It's an invisible, paralyzing, and toxic force that undermines and weakens and demoralizes, and so many other words that you can use in a very insidious and concealed way. You only see its results. The results: indecision, second guessing, indecisiveness, inability to make a move. And at times it does manifest in real fear, panic, and anxiety. Now that's also quite horrendous, but even more so, the invisible effect, that you don't really see it. No panic attack. It just, in a very silent way, just paralyzes you from not being able to really move forward. And where does this fear come from? Sometimes it's very deeply rooted in our childhood traumas and experiences that immobilized and disempowered and invalidated us. With the contrast to that would be when you're nurtured and loved and validated, and you're allowed to speak, and you're allowed to say something, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to express yourself. That gives you the sense that I have the courage to do so because people respect me. But if you're continuously attacked or vilified or berated or criticized, and all other ways that weaken and don't allow us to be, especially a child, but over time, you build up a sense that I'm not worth it, and you develop a fear of expressing yourself, a fear of saying something. You may be criticized, you may be mocked and laughed at. Now this gets much deeper when you include into the equation any form of violation and any form of abuse and hurt. Because that thrives in silence. The breeding ground of all unhealthy behavior is silence. We don't talk about it. The big secret. Someone recently said to me, I often hear it almost every year during the season, the holiday season, beginning with Thanksgiving, I don't want to go home. I dread going home and taking that picture, that perfect family picture, where everybody's smiling, when in truth, behind the scenes and under the surface, there's so much crime, so much violation, so much pain and hurt and trauma. I don't want to masquerade. But that's what happens in an environment of dysfunctionality. Silence and fear are its driving forces. that I'm afraid to express myself. I will be criticized. I'll be blamed. Why do children blame themselves for parents' divorce? For other traumas that they did not initiate? Because children are innocent. They're pure. They trust. And if someone who they're supposed to trust did something, if they did it wrong, it must be my fault, not their fault. It's hard for a child to accept that a parent, a trusting parent at that, a loving parent, could be so criminal, could be so inappropriate. And that's the greatest crime of them all, that the very trust itself turns against you, the victim, creating fear. I remember one of the first times I heard about serious, this was unfortunately on an incestuous level, without getting graphic, a father who had violated his own children, his own daughter. And when she would cry in the bedroom, he and his other children would sing loud, sing louder to drown out her cries. Not only was she not allowed to cry, it wasn't even heard. It was laughed at, it was dismissed. All to what? To allow one person to indulge themselves in their perverse, atrocious, and heinous behavior. How many more children are crying today? How many more children have been silenced? Crying already is an expression. So fear abounds. I sure hope and pray that you who are listening to this do not experience such fear. Because nobody wants to know what it's like. I thank God, cannot say that I live in such fear. Have I had moments? We all have our moments. But to experience it 24/7, to be constantly in a state of not knowing, insecure, who will hurt you next, even if no one's there to hurt you, but you're convinced that something like that will happen. Very hard for someone who has not experienced it to imagine it. But yet it's a reality. So however fear manifests in your life, whether it's on a more subtle form or more blatant form, this message is for you. Even the worst forms of fears. So here's the story. Moses has been confronting Pharaoh of Egypt, the king of Egypt, to let my people go, to end this Holocaust, to end this genocide, and allow the people to be free, not to be subjugated in servitude at the mercy of their Egyptian masters, which included murder, wanton murder, torture, complete humiliation that comes with real slavery, first documented, institutionalized slavery. So Moses is confronting Pharaoh, and we know this confrontation is deeper than just a king of a country and an ultimate savior, Prince Moses, who would ultimately save the people. There's spiritual, psychological, and emotional confrontations going on as well. Pharaoh was no small individual. He was a person who was a sorcerer. He had great powers. He's sometimes called the great serpent, or the great alligator, actually. Because he had spiritual powers, but of the occult, of the negative, of the dark forces of existence. So as Moses kept on pushing him, what happens? He keeps going deeper and deeper into the abyss, into the throes of the tentacles of Pharaoh. At some point, Moses is terrified. Because in the beginning, it was more of a, I would say superficial, but more on external levels. As he got deeper into this evil and saw its machinations and its complexities, it terrified Moses. And we have a powerful Zohar, the mystical text called the Zohar, that asks a question. That this chapter that we're reading this week begins with God saying to Moses, come to Pharaoh, come to Pharaoh. And the question is, what do you mean come to Pharaoh? It should say go to Pharaoh. As it said earlier, go. God is sending him as his messenger to go to him. What do you mean come to Pharaoh? And the Zohar answers that Moses, as he was entering those deeper inner chambers of darkness, he became frightened. And he was trembling. And he says to God, I'm afraid of going. Not that Moses didn't have the courage or the strength. He saw what he was contending with. It wasn't that suddenly Moses got cold feet. He saw it with his own eyes. And God therefore says to him, come with me. Don't go on your own. You come with me. I hold your hand. I carry you. I need you to be the messenger. I need you to go. I need you to confront. But I'm going with you. And that's the meaning of the boy, come with me. In this lies, in this very one word, become with me, lies a tremendous power and potency for each one of us. The ultimate antidote to all fear is not just to say to yourself, oh, the fear is imagined, it's exaggerated, it comes from traumas, it's not really me. That's all true. But the emotional hold that it has on us, it doesn't help to just say there's nothing there. It's like a child who's trembling or terrified of the fact that there may be a boogeyman under the bed. And you say there's nothing there, and you help him look, and he says, well, as soon as we looked, it disappeared. It's in the mind, it's in the heart. You can't argue with a scared child. It's not about logic. It's more powerful than logic. So, however, you could say, okay, there are legitimate fears, or even if they're not based on anything, but they're legitimate in your feelings, I will go with you. So come with me. Let's go together. You're not alone. And that provides strength. I can't resist a classic joke, which talk about under the bed. So there was this guy that was having nightmares that he has a monster under his bed. He couldn't get rid of the nightmares. He had these sleepless nights. Every time he fell asleep, he woke up a moment later. There may be a monster. He looked, peeked under, nothing there. But you know how it is. As soon as you get back, you say, maybe now it's there. We all know how fear works. So he finally went to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist took top dollar, $600 a session or whatever it was. And they began to talk, and they began to explore, and they began to look into his childhood and the different traumas. And you can imagine week after week, he's spending quite a lot of money. They're not getting very far. Months pass, nothing has changed. It comes the holiday season, Rosh Hashanah. So the rabbi comes to this businessman, he's a businessman, and says to him, what about your pledge this year for the new year? He says, this year I cannot give, I've been spending it on psychiatry. The rabbi says, what? What's going on? He tells him the story. So the rabbi says, I'll give you advice that will eliminate all the problems. You won't have to go back to the psychiatrist so you can fulfill your pledge or make a new pledge. What's the advice? He gave him advice. And you know what? It solved all the problems. He was able to sleep peacefully. So he stopped going to the psychiatrist. He meets the psychiatrist a while later. The psychiatrist says, what happened to you? He says, I resolved the problem for free. My rabbi gave me simple advice and it was resolved. He said, what did he tell you? He said, he told me to cut off the legs of the bed. So the bed no longer had a bottom part. It was on the ground. So of course, no monsters can get in there. Now, I wish it was so true for the other fears that we deal with, but it's a nice story about how things sometimes go through our minds. But the point of Boy El Pari, come with me, that you don't travel alone is one of the key things you look in all recovery, 12 steps and others. You're not alone. You have others that are with you, others that suffer perhaps with you. You're not alone. And that is a critical lesson in life. You see, the fears that grow, especially from early childhood traumas, is precisely because we feel alone. We feel isolated. We feel, as I said, vilified, off limits. It's your problem. It's not real. It's all in your head, you're told. So what happens in addition to the fear is there's no one to talk to. So you become very lonely. And a human being cannot survive alone. 9 months we're spent in our mother's womb. And after that, in a nurturing home, we're loved, we're cradled, we're nursed, we're taken care of, we're protected, we're sheltered. When we're deprived of that, we lose our confidence, we lose our strength. So fear is this vicious cycle. It feeds off itself. And the isolation feeds the fear feeds the isolation, and there you are, all alone, growing into an adult, and now you have to make it. So smart people figure out how to maneuver, but still, how much of our decisions are driven by that invisible enemy? So the antidote is exactly from the same place where the problem began. Finding someone that will go with you, someone that will travel with you, someone that joins you in your life. Now that's also sometimes difficult because we say, I don't want to bring anybody into my darkness. They don't deserve it. They won't understand. Wait till they really hear how bad it is. Because remember, our own lack of confidence makes us feel that if people really knew who I was, they wouldn't want to be with me. That is why it's critical to develop a relationship with your soul, with God. However you understand the word God. But with something that comes with you, that you don't go alone. Even the great Moses needed that. Each of us need that in our lives. Now, people are always the best place to turn to, even though sometimes you could say, well, people disappointed me. How can I go to a person? My trust has been betrayed. You can't give up because then you're giving up on yourself. But it also can come in the form of a project, of an activity that nurtures you and that gives you that strength. So no one's suggesting that it's easy, but we have a formula. A formula. So I say to each person that I meet, and to each one of you, as I said, I hope that you don't have fears that debilitate you. But whatever fear you may have, think of it this way. Look for ways to discover a divine component within yourself that can travel with you. Someone you can speak to, in words or no words, that you can say, I need you. I cannot do this alone. I need you to work with me. There's been talk about, over the years, about the inner child. To reconnect to your inner child, that innocent child, pre-trauma, pre-pain, pre-suffering, pre-fear. Whatever it takes, you need to find a partner with you. So it's not about just eliminating and dispelling the fears. Obviously, anything that can work toward that direction, great. It's about feeling that you're not alone, that you're coming. Come with me. I'm holding your hand. Let's do this together. And this is why it's so vital to have each other. Because when you know that that's there, see, even when the moments that you may feel like you're falling, or you may feel weak, you have something to lean on, something to hold on to. I speak for myself, though, as I said, I don't have any traumatic fears. But we all have our fears. We have fears of failure, fears of success, fear you're not living up to what you should be living up to. Sometimes fear that doesn't even make sense. So for myself, and I speak on a personal note, it's often the work I do, the work with people. You give me strength, whether you know it or not. You know, I know some people will say, you're like a fearless guy. I get strength from you. It goes both ways. Because at the end of the day, it's not just what you feel, it's also how you act. Which leads me to point number 2. At the end of the day, yes, God said, come with me, but Moses went. He didn't just say, let's talk about it, let's philosophize. You have to make the move. And when you make the move and you're confident that you're standing on the shoulders of something greater than you, that you're tied above so you don't fall below, and you make the move itself also builds and breeds further confidence, further strength, further courage. Try it out. Find a new friend. Find someone that you need and needs you. And I don't mean in a needy way, in a clingy way, but you complement each other. Discover the things that you have something to give, but you could see someone else appreciating it. And that helps each of us come to a place of greater strength. So, in addressing the recent atrocious scandals where so many children, so many young people, some of our adults, are still trembling in fear because they've been hurt. And no matter what someone tells them, they know this is not appropriate. So what happens is they cry inside. That each one of you should know that you're not alone. There are others that understand, others willing to listen, willing to also speak. And there's God. There's the God within each one of us that says, come with me. I go with you, I travel with you, I'm always there with you. Even when you may feel, or may be helpless or hopeless, There's a force that's keeping you going. And it's critical to hold on to that and know that it's unwavering. Sometimes we'll be able to hold on stronger. Sometimes we may feel weak. Don't beat yourself up if there are setbacks or weak moments. But continuously try to work on finding that support, finding that partnership. Come with me. We go together in this journey called life. All its twists and turns, travails, ups and downs. And we will make it. We will make it. As one person once wrote, that in the end all will be good. If it's not good, it means it's not the end. The narrative continues. And we are here for each other, joining together, coming together, and becoming one as we reach greater heights of transcendence, and ultimately, yes, dispelling the darker fears that so affect so much of our lives. What shall I say? I'd like to give a blessing that all fear should be eradicated, all reasons and causes for fear should be eradicated. And meanwhile, till we get to that full point, may we be there for each other, give each other that strength, and ultimately bring into this world the opposite of fear: strength, fortitude, power, love, compassion, and all those beautiful virtues. My name is Simon Jacobson. It's an honor to speak with you. Please share this with others. I'd love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your comments. Go to meaningfullife.com where we have this and many, many other programs. Actually, tonight at 8 p.m., I'm doing a special edition of a program called Abuse, Betrayal, and Protecting Our Children, addressing the crisis in general of our times, but especially has come to light recently, again and again. And so please join me. You can see that go to meaningfullife.com or chasidusapply.com. Be broadcast on all our channels at 8 p.m. this evening. Again, Simon Jacobson here. Thank you so much. Everyone have a beautiful day, beautiful week, a beautiful year.
Scattiamo stanotte, viri come balla, sutta e fanali chi si scidica. Ballamo stanotte, salta come un'anna, chi pettini di luna in sciolla. Gira musica, gira e non si ferma, come una galla do vento aita. Attira con narina, tamburello e abbacia come sua figliola. Scattano stanotte, viri come balla, sutta e fanali chi si scidica. Ballamo stanotte, salta come un'anna, chi pettini di luna in sciolla. Sinni e tunu, i voti si danno, tu na poco gli peputia. Sinda affettunu, i cappotti russi e si ricordano da notti buona. Scattamo stanotte, vini come balla, sutta e fanali chi si scidica. Ballamo stanotte, salta come un'anna, chi pettini di luna in sciolla.